Hello everyone, this is Kat. Welcome back to My Hero Academia Podfic. This will be the continuation of Todoroki's Conspiracy. This will be Part 7, Chapters 13 and 14. Chapter 13, Teacher's Thoughts. It takes Shota Aizawa a single day to confirm that his students have not, in fact, moved on from whatever issues they've been holding on to. No, instead of getting better, they seem to have gotten worse. And it's spreading. First it was just Todoroki, and that was, well, not manageable, but definitely easier. Because when it was just Todoroki, Shota was willing to believe that the boy just had a crush, because when it was just Todoroki, the boy simply followed Midoriya around, giving the green-haired boy all of his attention, because when it was just Todoroki, there was nothing hostile, nothing to truly spark concern. But then things changed. And suddenly Uraraka, Ida, and even Shinso joined into the mix. Todoroki started glaring at teachers, Uraraka looked ready to start a fight, Ida was more tense than ever, and Shinso was closing off more than he originally had been. And the boy had been rather tight-lipped when Shota first started training him. But Shota pushed it off, foolishly, because when Shinso wouldn't give an honest answer, Shota tried giving them space. Space because he thought that his students might have just been overstressed from rapidly approaching finals. Space because he thought that maybe it was just some teenager thing. Space because he was hoping that the kids weren't pissed over a common problem, specifically one about Midoriya, because he was the one to truly link them all together. But no. Space was apparently the wrong thing to give them, because when Shota walks in to see his students for their first lesson of the term, he can tell that it's gotten worse. And he doesn't just mean individual reactions, although that, too, seems to have increased. Todoroki is standing beside Midoriya's desk, not even at his own seat, despite the bell being set to ring in mere moments. When Shota steps in, Todoroki doesn't look up, yet the boy's posture stiffens. And Shota sees how one of his hands, the one further from Midoriya, and closer to himself, curls into a fist. Uraraka is standing on the other side of the desk, and she glares at him from the corner of her eye. Ida doesn't even hide how he watches Shota enter the room, head turning as Shota moves to the podium. But they aren't the only ones who track his movements so closely, and that's what catches Shota off guard, what truly clues him in on the fact that the grudge is far from gone. Shota analyzes each of his students through half-closed eyes, keeping an unconcerned expression on his face as he searches for any additional oddities. Jiro's earphone jacks are raised, a clue that she's prepared to attack if need be. The display ruins the otherwise calm facade that she wears. Yaoyorozu is probably the most discreet, eyes only staying on him for a moment too long, but then she shifts her entire body, leaning more towards Midoriya's direction, and that's a sign that Aizawa has learned to recognize as a "this student is being odd" kind of trait. But the one that really surprises him, Bakugo, who sneers at him the moment he glances his way, and then turns his head and starts talking to Midoriya. Talking to Midoriya. Not yelling, not threatening. There isn't even a spark coming from the boy's palms. He's just talking. Yeah, something is wrong, Shota thinks to himself, and his next thought is, how am I going to fix this? Shota isn't sure, but he knows that he needs to talk to some people, like Midoriya, because his friends all have become hostile, and if they're anything like Shinso, they're going to refuse to explain why. Midoriya, however, seems unaware of these changes, or simply is uncaring. Perhaps he'll know why they're being so odd, or offer some insight on the past few months. But Midoriya isn't the first person Shota needs to talk to. No, Shota's going to talk to a certain recently retired symbol of peace. Because he's not blind, and he knows that the kids seem to be more pissed at All Might than anyone else, and he's going to find out what that blonde idiot did. Toshinori Yagi is many things. A former symbol of peace, the previous #1 hero for years, and a hero at heart. He's a teacher, the 8th holder of One for All, and the predecessor of the 9th. He's alive, and he is staying alive, and he is holding on to that, and all that the world will offer him, for the sake of his young student, who needs him the most. And he will admit, he's a touch oblivious, but even he has noticed that something is off with his pupils, and his talk with Aizawa-kun during lunch made it quite clear that he needs to pay more attention to these changes, because they're not for the better. They've been rather, how does he put it kindly? Ah, yes, they're being moody, which is understandable. Toshinori, too, would have been a little frustrated if his first term as a hero student had gone so poorly. Attacked by villains since the very first week, it's no wonder that the hero fledglings are so on guard. But even so, it is unhealthy to bottle up so many emotions. Toshinori has seen the effects in his students, and has seen how upset some of them have become. Young Todoroki is constantly glaring during lessons. Young Ida has grown terribly stiff, even compared to his usual standards. Young Uraraka is more violent in lessons. Young Bakugo is more explosive than ever before, again even compared to his normal standards. Young Kirishima is not his usual smiling self. Young Jiro is blatantly ignoring him at times, and young Yaoyorozu is the same as young Jiro. It's quite sad, seeing how distant they've been growing, and Toshinori can't stand to watch this continue any longer. After all, a hero's job is to meddle in the business of others, even when they're not wanted, and that is why Toshinori stands before his heroes in training, beaming at all 20 of them as they stand before him and offers them the words that they've needed to hear for so long. Your first lesson of the term will be a simple yet fun one. Toshinori starts cheerfully and takes delight in seeing how many of his students light up, even if quite a few just continue to glower. But before we begin, I would like to say a few words. Standing tall, Toshinori clears his throat and continues. I understand that the last term has been something of a doozy for us all. From the USJ to the summer camp and all that was in between, you lot have been through quite a lot already. You may be heroes in training, but that doesn't mean that you should have to be forced to face villains so soon. With all that has occurred, do not be surprised if you felt upset or angry recently. I have no doubt that many of you are stressed or scared, but please do not feel as though you are alone. If you ever need to talk, just know that I am here to listen. He finishes his miniature speech with another smile, a replica of the one that he always wore in his more muscular form. And he must be hearing things, because for a moment he could swear that he heard young Todoroki mutter, "Talk to my hand in the fucking pit." But that would not make sense, because really, what even is the pit? Toshinori cannot recall UA having an area on campus named with such a title, so he's clearly hearing things incorrectly. Perhaps Toshinori too has been rather stressed out by all that has occurred. He'll have to look into it further. Looking over the small crowd of teenagers, however, Toshinori's worries melt away when he sees young Midoriya's blinding smile and encouraging thumbs up. Despite all that has happened, he can't help but be grateful for the small sign of positivity. At the very least, it seems like his successor is his usual cheery self. Toshinori is glad to see that he's still so happy, even though many of his friends are not. He can only hope that their bad moods won't affect his positive disposition. It would be a shame to see his boy so sad. A true shame. Chapter 14. The Sleeping Void and the Sunshine Incarnate Chat. Izuku is practically vibrating in his seat as the bus makes its way back to UA. Clutched in his hands is his provisional license, which he spent the last 2 weeks training for. He's one step closer to being a hero. He's been beaming since he saw his results, and his cheeks are kind of starting to hurt, but that's fine. Izuku doesn't think anything cannot be fine right now, not when he's proven that he's improved, now that he's able to start showing the world that he's here. All Might will be so proud of him, for once Izuku's sure of it. He's already sent his mentor a picture of the license and got a cheerful response of, "Good job, my boy, you're doing great," which is how Izuku knows that he's done well. But apparently he's done something wrong, because Aizawa-sensei taps him on the arm as he tries to get off the bus once they're back on campus. Izuku turns to face his teacher, tilting his head in lieu of asking a question. "We need to talk soon," Aizawa-sensei says, like that isn't ominous at all. "Meet me at Ground Beta after you eat dinner with the class, all right?" "Yes, sensei." Izuku promises immediately, and Aizawa nods, satisfied before shooing him off. Izuku listens, not wanting to upset his teacher more before their talk. What did I do? Izuku asks himself immediately, trying to recall something, anything, that can help him remember, but he can't. He can't. He can't recall any reasons that Aizawa would want to talk to him. Izuku hasn't injured himself since camp, not even once, and so it can't be that. And he hasn't gotten into any fights with anyone either, not even Kachan, who's been, well, nice to him. In his usual angry, explosive way, of course, but still nice nonetheless. Really, Izuku can't figure it out. He can't recall doing anything wrong. And honestly, that worries him. Izuku feels his smile slipping away and bites the inside of his cheek as he attempts to dig further, probing his own mind for a hidden memory, something he must have repressed, but he can't find anything. "Midoriya?" Todoroki asks, and Izuku jumps. Yes, Todoroki," Izuku asks, then frowns. "Sorry, were you saying something? I was lost in my head. That's my fault, and—" "You weren't." Todoroki cuts off, then his nose scrunches up. "I wasn't," he corrects, and then nods to himself. "I wasn't talking. You don't need to apologize, Midoriya." "Oh, okay. Was there something you wanted to say?" Izuku asks, and Todoroki shakes his head. "No, you just looked upset. I didn't like that." "Oh." Izuku smiles, face warmer as he says, "Well, I'm definitely happy now, Todoroki." "You are?" Todoroki asks, and Izuku nods enthusiastically. "Of course I am. I'm talking with you after all." Todoroki smiles at that, and Izuku thinks that he did all right with the conversation, which is good because he likes cheering up his friends. Izuku's so happy at this moment. He's able to forget about his stress for a moment. It's only once he's back to his room that he recalls his teacher's request. Well, looks like he'll be panicking for the next few hours. How fun. When Shota told Midoriya to come to Ground Beta after dinner, he didn't think too much of it. He saw an opportunity to talk to the kid alone and knew that the training grounds would be far enough away that his students wouldn't be able to listen in on what could quickly become a private conversation. If there's something wrong with Midoriya's life, he has no doubts that the boy wouldn't want to broadcast his secrets to the entire class, and on one hand, Shota knows that he has Midoriya's wish for privacy under control. On the other hand, he didn't expect Midoriya to be shaking when he shows up. "Midoriya," Shota greets, and then he holds back a sigh when the kid jumps. "Yes, Sensei, you wanted to see me." His hands are curling, pulling at the hem of his shirt, and his eyes are darting around. He's nervous. For a moment, Shota wonders why, but then he realizes the conclusion the kid must have made. "You're not in trouble, problem child," Shota says, and he watches as Midoriya immediately untenses, shoulders dropping in surprise. "Oh, I thought I did something," Midoriya says, but then his eyebrows are furrowing as he's asking, not to, be rude or anything, but why did you call for me then?" He glances around and then his eyes lit up. "Are we training? But then why would we train individually? I know that you already have Shinso as a personal student. I already have All Might helping me, unless you think I'm not progressing quickly enough, which is a fair assumption, but I don't know if it warrants me taking up your time. You already spent so much time on me and—" "Problem child." Shota cuts the boy off before he can run out of air, as Midoriya's eyes snap back up to meet his. "We aren't training right now." "Then why am I here?" Midoriya asks, tilting his head as he asks it, and Shota pushes back the urge to compare him to a confused puppy, even if he happens to look like one with those wide eyes of his. "Your classmates can be rather nosy at times. I figured this was a better place to chat than the dorms, far enough that they won't hear." Midoriya blinks at that, then nods slowly. "All right. What did you want to ask, Sensei?" Not one to beat around the bush, Shota asks, "Kid, are you okay?" Apparently Shota should have done some bush beating, because Midoriya just looks at him oddly and says, "Yes?" Which is a question which doesn't answer his own question at all. Sighing, Shota shakes his head. "No, kid, I mean it. Midoriya, are you okay?" He looks for any tells, any hidden reactions the boy may have, but he doesn't even flinch, doesn't even hesitate before nodding his head and chirping out a happy little, "Yes, Sensei." This doesn't make any sense, because with everything going on with his peers and the odd guard-like habits many of them have picked up, Shota figured that the kid had something wrong. Shota walks closer to the boy, placing a hand on his shoulder, and speaks seriously. "Listen, problem child, and listen closely, got it?" Midoriya nods frantically. "If you've got a problem in your life right now, you don't need to hide it. A fight with a friend, class stressing you out, even a problem with your family, it doesn't matter. You don't need to carry that on your own. You can talk to your friends or a teacher." Shota squeezes the kid's shoulder gently, making sure that he's paying attention. "You can talk to me, if you prefer. Just don't overwhelm yourself, all right?" Midoriya stares at him with wide eyes, tears forming quickly, and he wipes at them as soon as they appear. "I got it, Aizawa-sensei. Thank you." And for a moment Shota thinks that the kid finally lets down his walls, but then he's beaming brighter than ever and saying, "But I promise, nothing is wrong. My life is better than ever, actually." Huh. Shota looks at the kid's eyes and sees how they're practically glowing in his excitement, and he believes the kid. Whatever's wrong right now, it's not because Midoriya is upset. Well, he might as well bite. "Oh?" Shota asks, and he's finally let go of the kid's shoulder and is standing upright, nudging the kid to start walking back to the dorms with him. "And how's that, problem child?" Midoriya perks up, grinning at Shota before jumping right into his rant. "Right. Well, to start, Todoroki called me his favorite person back at the summer camp, and I've never been someone's favorite person before, you know? But he said it so casually, like it was no big deal, and wow, that was really cool, and—" Shota listens as his student rambles on about his friends, his lips threatening to twitch into a smile when Midoriya expresses his excitement over Bakugo's recent kindness to him. The boy manages to take up half the walk, back to the dorms, just going on about how wonderful his friends are, and it's so painfully Midoriya that Shota can't help but huff a silent laugh at the boy's excitement. But at the halfway point, Midoriya's wide eyes suddenly turn on him, and then the boy is asking, "How about you, Sensei? How have you been?" Shota didn't expect the question, and it must show on his face because Midoriya backtracks just as quickly as he spoke, frantic apologies spewing out of his mouth until Shota sets a hand on Midoriya's head. "I'm fine," he responds, patting the boy's hair for a good measure, before retracting it once more. "That's good. I was wondering if you were, considering you practically work full-time now. Not that you weren't busy before. After all, you do work 2 jobs, but Now you get to go to sleep, and you're still at school, and that must be strange, isn't it? It is, Shota admits. But it's fine. I'd rather be here than let you lot set the dorms on fire because you were unsupervised. Midoriya giggles at that and proceeds to ask him a few more questions as they finish the short trip back. Little things like whether or not Hisashi actually chose his hero name, when did Hisashi tell the kids that, or if Shota has heard of the sleeping bags that someone can walk around in, which he has, for the record, before they finally make it back to the dorms. As Midoriya moves to open the door, however, Shota has one last thing to add. Problem child, Shota adds, and Midoriya perks up again. Yes, Sensei. If you did want to train with me, you and I can start on the weekends. Really? Midoriya asked, sounding more excited than a good amount of his peers would at the idea of having additional training being pushed onto them, especially with Shota. But Midoriya isn't like most of his peers. Shota knows that the kid will push himself hard. At the very least, that means that the kid won't go overboard on the weekends. Yes, really, Shota confirms, and Midoriya nods happily. I'd be happy to. Thank you so much, Sensei. Yep, now run along to your friends. I'm sure they miss you. The kid darts inside, and Shota heads to his own room with a smile on his own face. While he may not be any closer to knowing what's wrong with some of his students, he at least knows that his problem child is okay. That counts for something, at least. When Midoriya walks into the common room, Shota looks over right away and asks, Hey, Midoriya, where were you? Midoriya startles at the sudden question, then he smiles and says, I was talking with Aizawa-sensei. He's going to start training me on the weekends. Shota frosts the entire couch over. All right, everyone. This concludes Chapter 14 of Todoroki's Conspiracy. Chapter 15 will be next, and as always, thank you so much for listening.